One of the major ingredients of happiness and one of the most important needs that you must satisfy is the need to obtain enough money so that you don't need to worry about money. I spoke earlier about the law of cause and effect and its sub-law, the law of belief. There's perhaps no other area where these laws are more in evidence than in the acquiring and keeping of money. Hundreds of thousands of men and women have started with nothing or even deeply in debt and achieved financial independence. Their attitudes and behaviors have been studied extensively, so we now know the causes of financial freedom better than ever before. And your most cherished beliefs on this subject of money will be the primary determinants of how much you get and how much you keep over the course of your working lifetime. One of the deepest needs of human nature, as you know, is to feel financially secure and safe. You can only free yourself from the fear of poverty and failure by achieving a certain financial estate and then by building a fortress around it so that you're safe and impregnable. This achievement of financial independence must be one of your primary duties and responsibilities because no one else will do it for you. I've said before that money is a deficiency need in that when you have enough, you don't think about it, but when you have too little, you think of nothing else. Money problems are the primary reason for marital breakdown, for business collapse, for the ruination of friendships, and for psychosomatic illnesses of all kinds. The reality principle, or the law of reality, holds true with regard to money. You remember this principle, which states that you must deal with life as it is, not as you wish it were or could be. Many people live in a world of self-delusion, where they wish and hope and pray about certain subjects and goals which they know deep in their hearts will never materialize. Perhaps the most common difficulty that people have in obtaining financial independence is a deep-seated belief that somehow money is wrong and that people who have a lot of it are inherently evil. This belief isn't based on any factual foundation, but goes back to early childhood conditioning, when the growing child is often convinced of this idea because of other people's desire to rationalize away their own financial failures. For example, when my wife and I got married, her entire family attended the wedding, as did my employer, a man worth more than $500 million. All their lives, the members of my wife's family had been led to believe that poverty was a virtue, and by extension, financial success was somehow unclean or evil. They were astonished to find that my employer, the richest man that they'd ever met or even heard of in their whole lives, was devoutly religious. He was a solid family man, very low-keyed, very polite, courteous, and quite charming. It took them months, even years, to readjust their thinking because they'd been led to believe that anyone with that kind of money must be bad in some way. The fact is that money is good, and it's largely attracted to good people who are good with it. Money tends to flow toward those people who can use it in the most productive way to create goods and services and employment and productive activities that benefit many others. At the same time, money flows away from those who use it poorly or who waste it non-productively. Money is very much like a lover. It must be courted and coaxed and flattered and treated with care and attention. It gravitates toward people who respect it and value it and are capable of doing worthwhile things with it. It flows through the fingers of people who don't understand it or take proper care of it. Sometimes people say that they're not very good with money. Being good with money is a skill that anyone can learn through practice. Usually, saying that one isn't very good with money is merely an excuse or a rationalization for the fact that the person is not very successful with money. The person who says this hasn't learned how to acquire it or to hold on to it. The starting point of accumulating money is for you to begin to believe that you have an unlimited capacity to obtain all the money that you'll ever need. Look upon yourself as a series of financial opportunities just waiting for a place to happen. Money buys freedom. Money gives you choices and enables you to live your life the way you want to live it. Money opens doors for you that would have been closed in its absence. But just like anything, an obsession with money can be hurtful. Even the Bible says, "The love of money is the root of all evil." It doesn't say that money is the root of all evil. It says that the love of money is the root of all evil. It's the preoccupation with money to the exclusion of the really important things in life that is the problem, not the money itself. Money itself is neither good nor bad. It's only the way that it's acquired and the uses to which it's put that places any value on money at all. There are 13 laws of money that you can apply to acquire and to keep more of it in your life. The first is the law of abundance. This law states that there is an ample supply for everyone who really wants it and who obeys the laws of cause and effect as they apply to money. The law of abundance is another way of saying that there's plenty of money around and available to you. There's no real shortage. You can have virtually all you want and need. The first part of the law of abundance says that people are rich because they decide to be rich. You can also say that they're rich because they believe they have the capacity to become rich, and in so believing, they take the necessary actions that turn their beliefs into realities. The second part of this law is that people are poor because they haven't yet decided to be rich. In the book, The Instant Millionaire by Mark Fisher, he asks the question, why aren't you rich already? However you answer this question will reveal a lot about yourself. Your answers will expose your self-limiting beliefs, your doubts, your fears, your excuses, your rationalizations, and your justifications. So, why aren't you rich yet? Whatever your answer is, and you should write down your answers on paper, it's up to you to make a plan to remove the obstacles between you and the amount of money you wish to acquire. The second law of money is the law of exchange. It states that money is the medium through which people exchange their production of goods and services for the goods and services of others. Before there was money, there was barter. In barter, people exchanged goods and services directly for goods and services without the medium of money. As civilization grew and barter became too clumsy, people found that they could exchange their goods and services, what they produced, into a medium like coins, which they could then exchange for the goods and services of others, thereby making the whole process more efficient. Today, we go to work and exchange our work for money, which we then use to purchase the results of the work of other people. The first part of the law of exchange says, money is a measure of the value that people place on goods and services. In the laws of economics, I describe the law of subjective value, and the fact that it's only what a person will pay of their own money, which represents their efforts, that determines the value of something. Every item for sale is priced based on what that person will exchange for it. The second part of this law says that your labor is considered a factor of production or a cost by everyone else. We each have a tendency to look upon the sweat of our brow or our work as something special because it's so intensely personal. However, we can't place a value on our own labor. The third part of this law then says that it's only what other people are willing to pay for our labor in a competitive marketplace that determines what we're worth. Earl Nightingale once said that you'll always be paid in direct proportion to the work you do, how well you do it, and the difficulty of replacing you. The quantity and quality of your contribution, in comparison with the contributions of others, and the value that people place on those contributions will determine exactly how much you're paid. The fourth part of the law of exchange says that money is an effect, not a cause. Your work or contribution to the value of a product or service is the cause, and the wage, salary, or earnings that come out is the effect. If you wish to increase the effect, you have to increase the cause. I'll talk about this more a little bit later in the program. The fifth part of the law of exchange says that to increase the amount of money you're getting out, you must increase the value of the work that you're putting in. To earn more money, you must increase your knowledge, or increase your skill, or improve your work habits, or work longer and harder hours, or work more creatively, or do something that enables you to get greater leverage from your talents. Sometimes you have to do all of these together. The highest paid people in our society are those who are using more of these factors in coordination to dramatically add value to the work that they're doing. The third law of money is the law of capital, which states that Your most valuable asset in terms of cash flow is your physical and mental capital, your earning ability. You may not even be aware that your ability to work is the most valuable asset that you have. By utilizing your earning ability to its fullest, you can pump literally thousands of dollars per year into your life. By applying your earning ability to the production of valuable goods and services, you can generate sufficient money to pay for all the things that you want and more besides. The amount of money that you are paid is a direct measure of the extent to which you've developed your earning ability so far. The first part of the law of capital says that your most precious resource is your time. Your time is really all you have to sell. How much time you put in and how much of yourself you put into that time largely determines your earning ability. Poor time management is one of the major reasons for underachievement and failure in almost every industry in America. The second part of the law of capital says that time and money can be either spent or invested. To a certain degree, your time and your money are interchangeable. You can spend your money to save time, or you can spend your time to save money. You can spend your time or money, in which case they're gone forever, or if you choose, you can invest either your time or your money, or both, and get a return on your investment. One of the smartest things that you can do is to invest 3% of your income or more every month and 1 hour of your time every day into increasing your earning ability and into building your human capital. This commitment to personal and professional development will pay off for you in greater measure than you can believe. Your return on the investment of your time and money into yourself can be absolutely extraordinary. The head of training for Motorola recently estimated that his company is getting $30 back for every dollar they invest in training. He says that it's the highest payoff use of time and money that the company can engage in, and they're increasing their expenditures to 4.8% of gross sales to invest in training. Therefore, the third part of the law of capital says that one of the best investments of your time and money is into increasing your earning ability. The fourth law of money is the law of time perspective. This comes from some pioneering work in sociology and success conducted by Dr. Edward Banfield of Harvard University in the late 50s and early 60s. After studying many of the factors that were thought to contribute to financial success in the course of a person's lifetime, he concluded that there was one primary factor that seemed to take precedence over all the others. He called it time perspective. This law then says that the most successful people in any society are those who take the longest time period into consideration when making their day-to-day decisions. What Banfield found was that the higher you go up in any society, the longer is the time perspective or point of view of the people at that level. An obvious example you're familiar with is the man or woman who spends 10 or 12 years studying and interning to become a doctor. This person takes an extraordinarily long time to lay down the foundation for a lifetime career. As you go down the socioeconomic ladder, at each rung, the individuals at that level of earnings have a shorter and shorter time perspective. At the bottom of the social ladder, the hopeless alcoholic or drug addict has a time perspective that is less than 1 hour. Wonderfully enough, you begin to elevate yourself socially and financially from the day that you begin thinking about what you're doing in terms of the possible long-term consequences of your actions and inactions. The first part of the law of time perspective then says that delayed gratification is the key to financial success. Your ability to resist the law of expediency, which urges you to satisfy your desires the fastest and easiest way possible, is the starting point of developing a long time perspective. This attitude is essential to financial achievement of any kind. The second part of the law of time perspective says that self-discipline is the most important personal quality for long-term success. Your ability to discipline yourself is probably the most important single quality that you can develop in your movement toward greater success and accomplishment. The third part of this law says that sacrifice in the short term is the price you pay for security in the long term. The key word here is sacrifice. Parents who work hard and save their money so that their children will have an opportunity to get an excellent education are practicing long-time perspective. They're making decisions that can affect their children in future generations. The fifth law of money is the law of saving. This law states that financial freedom comes to the person who saves 10% or more of his or her income throughout his or her lifetime. One of the smartest things that you can ever do for yourself is to develop the habit of saving part of your salary from the time you take your first job. Individuals, families, and even societies are stable and successful to the degree to which they have high savings rates. Savings today are what guarantee the security and the possibilities of tomorrow. The first part of the law of saving comes from the famous book entitled The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. In it, he recommends that you save 10% of your income in a fund for long-term financial accumulation, and his rule is simply pay yourself first. However much you earn, take 10% off the top and pay it to yourself in the form of a long-term savings or investment account before you go on to pay your regular operating expenses. The remarkable thing you'll find is that when you pay yourself first and force yourself to live on the other 90%, it soon becomes fairly easy. Many people go from paying themselves first with 10% of their income to eventually saving 15% and 20% and even more, and their financial lives change dramatically as a result. The second part of the law of saving says, take advantage of tax-deferred savings and investment plans. Because of high tax rates, money that is saved or invested without being taxed accumulates at a rate of 30 to 40% faster than money that's subject to taxation. In the book by Charles Givens, Wealth Without Risk, he lays out a variety of strategies for saving money on your day-to-day expenses and putting that money away carefully so that it accumulates over time to ultimately bring you the financial security that you desire. And he strongly recommends tax-deferred savings. The third part of this law is that once you start a savings program, never use the money for anything but financial accumulation. It's sad but true that if you save for a rainy day, the one thing that you can be sure of is that it's going to start raining very soon. If you save with the intention of spending the money as soon as you need it, you're going to need it sooner than you realize. Your philosophy of saving should be that once you put the money away, you never spend it on anything. If you want to save for a rainy day or a car or a house or a motorhome, you set up separate savings accounts for them. But once you've begun your wealth accumulation account, you discipline yourself not to ever touch it, and not for any reason. The sixth law of money is the law of conservation, which says that it's not how much you make, but how much you keep that will determine your financial future. Many people make a lot of money in the course of their working lifetimes. Sometimes, during boom periods, people greatly exceed their expectations and make more money than they ever thought possible. Unfortunately, they develop the walk-on-water syndrome, and they begin to believe that it's because of their remarkable skills and abilities that they're doing so well in a particular field. In many cases, it's just because the economy or that particular field is booming. These people often assume that because they're making a lot of money, they have the ability to make a lot more indefinitely. They then go on to spend everything they earn. Remember, the true measure of how well you're really doing is how much you keep out of the amount that you earn. Successful people are very fastidious about putting away chunks of money and paying down debt during the prosperous times so that they have a solid financial foundation that isn't threatened when the economy or business turns downward. The seventh law of money is called Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law is one of the best known and the most important laws of money and wealth accumulation. It was put forth by C. Northcote Parkinson of London, England, many years ago, and it says simply that expenses always rise to meet income. No matter how much people make, they have a tendency to spend the whole amount and a little bit more besides. Expenditures always seem to rise to meet income. The first part of Parkinson's law is extremely important. It simply says, financial security comes from violating Parkinson's law. It's only to the degree to which you resist the powerful urge to spend everything you make that you begin to build your financial fortress and to move ahead of the crowd. The second part of Parkinson's law is that if you allow your expenses to increase at a slower rate than your income, and you save or invest the difference, you'll become financially independent in your working lifetime. This is the key. I call it the wedge. If you can drive a wedge between your increasing earnings over time and the increasing costs of your lifestyle, and then save or invest the difference, you can continue to improve your lifestyle as you make more money, but by violating Parkinson's law, you'll eventually end up financially well off. The eighth law of money is the law of three. In reference to money, this law says there are three legs to the stool of financial freedom. They are savings, insurance, and investment. One of your jobs is to build a financial fortress for yourself within which you can be safe from the insecurities experienced by most people in old age. Throughout your working lifetime, you need to maintain a certain amount in each of these three: savings, insurance, and investment. The first part of the law of three says that your savings should be liquid and be sufficient for 2 to 6 months of normal expenses. Your very first job financially is to save enough money so that if you lost your source of income for up to 6 months, you'd have enough put aside to carry you over. The very act of saving this amount of money and putting it into a high-yielding savings account or a money market account will give you a tremendous sense of confidence and inner peace. A young woman who attended one of my seminars in which we discussed the importance of saving your money wrote to me after a year and told me an interesting story. She said that she had never considered the fact that she was completely responsible for her own financial well-being. From that moment forward, however, she began saving some of her income every paycheck rather than spending it all as she earned it, as she had done in the past. She became so good at saving that within a year she had almost 2 months of income put aside in the bank. Now, about that time, she began to have difficulties with her boss, and she eventually walked out of her job. She said that having the money in the bank made it possible for her to quit doing something she no longer enjoyed and allowed her to take her time finding a better job at which she was paid substantially more. She wrote in her letter that if she hadn't started saving, she would have been trapped in her job. She would have been unable to leave, and she would have lost both her self-respect and her self-esteem. The second part of the law of three says that you should carry sufficient life and health insurance to provide for yourself and others in any emergency. Always take out insurance against an emergency that you cannot write a check to cover. Insure your car for liability and collision. Insure your health for unexpected setbacks. And insure your life so that if something unfortunate happens to you, the people who are counting on you will be provided for. Remember, perhaps the deepest need or craving of human nature is the desire for security, and without insurance your life is simply a gamble which can cause you stress and unhappiness. The third part of the law of three says that you should invest 10 to 20% of your income throughout your life until your investments earn more than you do. Your life is divided into roughly 3 parts, although these 3 parts tend to overlap. First, there are your learning years, where you grow up and get your education. Then there are your earning years, from approximately 20 years of age to approximately 65 years of age. After that come your yearning years, where you can retire, with the average life expectancy today being 74.9 years and rising. The simplest and most effective of all financial strategies is for you to save and invest your money continually until your money is paying you more than you earn at your job. At that point, you can begin to phase out of your regular job and to phase in to managing your assets. This seems like a very simple lifetime planning strategy, but it's remarkable how few people follow it, and how many people end up at the age of 65 with very little put aside. The average retired American today has a total net worth of approximately $31,000, plus their Social Security income. Don't let this happen to you. The ninth law of money is the law of investing. This law states that you should investigate before you invest. It's one of the most important single laws you'll ever learn. You should spend at least as much time studying a particular investment as you do earning the money to put into that particular investment. Never let yourself be rushed into parting with money that you've worked so hard for and taken so long to accumulate. Investigate every single aspect of the investment well before you make any commitment. Ask for full and complete disclosure, for honest and accurate and adequate information. And if you have any doubt or misgivings at all, you'll probably be far better off keeping your money in a tax-deferred savings or money market investment account than you would be speculating or taking the risk of losing it. The first part of the law of investing is that the only thing easy about money is losing it. It's very hard to make money in a competitive society, but losing it is one of the easiest things you can ever do. A Japanese proverb says that making money is like digging with a nail, whereas losing money is like pouring water on the sand. The second part of this law comes from the self-made billionaire Marvin Davis, who was asked about his rules regarding money in an interview in Forbes magazine in 1989. He said that he has one simple rule, and it is, don't lose money. If there's a possibility that you'll lose your money, he says, don't part with it in the first place. This principle is so important that you should write it down somewhere and repeat it over and over. The third part of the law of investing says that if you think you can afford to lose a little, you're going to end up losing a lot. There's something about the attitude of a person who feels that he has enough money that he can afford to risk losing a little. You remember the old saying, a fool and his money are soon parted. Well, there's another saying, when a man with experience meets a man with money, the man with the money is going to end up with some experience, and the man with experience is going to end up with the money. The fourth part of the law of investing says that only invest with experts who have a proven track record of success in handling money. I had dinner with a wealthy self-made millionaire in Portland, Oregon 2 years ago. He had started with nothing, and he'd gradually worked his way up to being worth several $1 million. He had a simple philosophy. He would only invest with people who had been successful at making money in the past. When he achieved his level of financial success, he would then only invest with people who were doing better than he was with their own money. Because he was a successful investor, he was often approached by people selling investments of various kinds. He would always tell the seller that he was willing to trade personal financial statements with him. If the seller would show him his personal financial statement, he would show the seller his. If the seller was doing better than he was, he would accept the seller's advice and buy the investment. However, if he was doing better than the seller was, he would decline. Many of the people who initially approached him for investment funds, in fact, most of them, were not doing particularly well at all. They would leave quietly and never come back. Your job is to invest only with people who have such a successful track record that your risk is dramatically diminished. Don't lose money. If ever you feel tempted, refer back to this rule and hold on to what you have. The 10th law of money is the law of compound interest. It states that investing your money carefully and allowing it to grow at compound interest will eventually make you rich. Compound interest is considered one of the great miracles of all human history and economics. When you let money accumulate at compound interest tax-free, it can grow more rapidly than you can imagine. You can use the Rule of 72 to determine how long it would take for your money to double by dividing the interest rate into the number 72. For example, if you were receiving 8% interest on your investment or your savings, and you divided the number 72 by 8, you'd come out with the number 9. This means it would take you 9 years to double your money at 8% interest. Of course, the more money you add to the account, the faster it would grow, but the Rule of 72 applies to any interest rate. The first part of the law of compound interest simply says, $1 invested at 3% interest at the time of Christ would be worth half the money in the world today. If the money had been allowed to grow and then double again, and then again and again and again, it would be worth many billions or trillions of dollars today. This brings us to the second part of this law, which says that the key to compound interest is to put it away and never touch it. The 11th law of money is the law of accumulation, which says that every great financial achievement is an accumulation of hundreds and thousands of small efforts and sacrifices that no one ever sees or appreciates. When you begin moving toward financial independence and financial security, it'll require a tremendous number of small efforts on your part to begin the process of accumulation. You must be disciplined and persistent. You must keep at it for a long, long time. Eventually, your efforts will begin to bear fruit. In just a little while, you'll begin to pull ahead of your peers, and by developing a long-time perspective, you can virtually assure that you'll end up rich. The first part of the law of accumulation says that as you accumulate savings, you develop a momentum that moves you more rapidly toward your goal. Once you begin saving, you begin to develop a rate of momentum that's very important for you to maintain. It's hard to get started on a program of financial accumulation, but once you do get started, you need to keep at it continually. If ever you allow yourself to lose the momentum and slow to a halt, it becomes extremely difficult for you to start up again. Momentum is one of the secrets of success that you need to develop and maintain in everything you decide to do. The second part of this law comes from Reverend Robert Schuller, who says that by the yard it's hard, but inch by inch, anything's a cinch. When we talk about saving 10 or 20% of your income, most people are initially overwhelmed and disappointed. They're already up to their necks in debt and bills, and they're spending every single penny that they earn just to keep afloat. However, if you find yourself in this situation, you can begin saving just 1% of your income in a special account, which you refuse to touch. Begin putting your change into a large jar every evening when you come home, and when the jar is full, take it to the bank and add it to your savings account. Whenever you get an extra sum of money from selling something, or an old debt is repaid, or you receive an unexpected bonus, instead of spending it, put it into a savings account. It'll start to add up at a rate that might surprise you. And as you become comfortable with saving 1%, move it up to 2%, then 3%, then 4% and 5%, and so on. Within a year, you'll find yourself getting out of debt and saving 10 and 15 and even 20% of your income without it really affecting your lifestyle. The 12th law of money is the law of attraction, which we've mentioned before in a different context. It also applies to money, and it says that as you begin accumulating money, you magnetize this money with the emotion of desire, and you begin attracting even more money to yourself. The first part of this law of attraction applied to money is that a prosperity consciousness, one that works and prepares for and expects prosperity, attracts money like iron filings to a magnet. When I first read about the importance of developing a prosperity consciousness, I was broke and in my early 20s. I didn't fully understand what it meant. It sounded good, but I didn't know how to do it. Over the years, however, I've found that as you develop a positive and expectant attitude toward money, and you begin believing in the law of abundance, your emotions somehow magnetize the money that you've saved, and you begin to attract more of it into your life. The second part of this law is something that you've heard before, and which says simply, it takes money to make money. As you begin accumulating money, you begin to attract more money and more opportunities to earn even more money into your life. This is why it's so important that you start, even with a small amount. You'll be amazed at what starts to happen. The 13th law of money is the law of accelerating acceleration, which says that as you begin moving toward your goal of financial freedom, it begins moving toward you at an accelerating speed. The first part of this law is that nothing succeeds like success. The more money and success you obtain and achieve, the more money and success seems to move towards you from a variety of different directions. Everyone who's financially successful today has had the experience of working extremely hard before they got their first real opportunity. However, after that, more and more opportunities began to flow to them like a river, and their major problem today is sorting out the various opportunities that they have to increase their money and improve their well-being. It'll be the same for you. The second part of the law of accelerating acceleration says that fully 80% of your success will come in the last 20% of the time you put in. Now, this is a remarkable discovery. It simply says that you'll achieve only about 20% of the total success possible for you in the first 80% of the time and money that you invest, and that you will achieve the other 80% in the last 20% of the time and money that you invest. For example, Peter Lynch, the recently retired manager of the Magellan Mutual Fund, one of the most successful mutual funds in history, said that the best investments he ever made were those that took the longest time to come to fruition. He would often buy the stock of a company that didn't increase in value for several years and then went up 10 or 20 times in price. This strategy of picking stocks for the long term eventually made him one of the highest paid money managers in America. A simple way to prove this to yourself is to take a penny and double it every day for 30 days. On the first day, you'll have 1 cent. On the second day, you'll have 2 cents. On the third day, you'll have 4 cents, then 8 cents, then 16 cents, then 32 cents, and so on. By the 30th day, you'll have several $1,000,000. However, on the 29th day, you'll have only half of the amount that you'll have on the 30th day. And on the 28th day, you'll have only 1/4 of what you'll have on the 30th day. So don't make the mistake of pulling out too soon and giving up all of the great increase that's possible for you by waiting. The laws of money say that you, starting wherever you are, even deeply in debt or working for someone else, even if you haven't been serious about money in the past, can save your money, invest it carefully, get out of debt, and achieve your financial goals in life. The only real question you have to ask with regard to money is, how badly do you want it? Remember, you're always free to choose. You are responsible. No one is ever going to do it for you. It's always up to you. But if you decide to follow these laws and principles, and if you persist long enough and hard enough, there is virtually nothing that can stop you from achieving the financial success that you desire.